Hey, it's Jake Gagne. Thanks for watching MotoAmerica on YouTube. Like, subscribe, comment, hit us with it.
It's time for the MotoAmerica AMA/FIM North American Road Race Championship. The round, Geico Motorcycle Superbike Speed Fest at Monterey. As we set the stage for Supersport race number 1 of our 5th round of the season, we're here at WeatherTech Raceway, Laguna Seca in Monterey, California. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the broadcast booth. I'm Greg White, standing alongside two-time AMA champ Jason Pridmore. Now, Jason, it has been an interesting season in Supersport because veteran Josh Herrin has arrived on the scene. He's dominating, but there's a whole host of riders trying to chase him down. Yeah, there's a bunch of youngsters that we have in the series right now that are doing just that. Ty Scott being one of them who's put it on pole position today. Benjamin Smith, nice to see him on the front row as well. But Herrin really has been the class of the field so far this year. He's taken a very good bike, won a bunch of races, and just our last race here at the Ridge was really dominant up there. And Jay, we talked about him on this Ducati V2. Of course, a new motorcycle for the series, these next generation motorcycles, and he really seems to gel with it immediately. Yeah, and I think that's going to be, with the new rules packages that we have this year, there's going to be some bikes that are going to be good at some places, some are going to be better at others. It's constantly revolving door as far as what bikes are going to work. But this bike here so far, Greg, has been dominant, but it also shows the class of rider that we have here. We have a Superbike champion racing against some of these young guys, and these young kids are going to learn from him. Let's take a look at his stats, because keep in mind, back in 2015 when MotoAmerica started, Josh Herrin was in the Supersport class. During that season, he finished second in the championship, and he was on the podium 73% of the time, but Jay, right now, 88%. Crazy. Yeah, that's a big one for him, and obviously he just wants to keep his head down, keep winning for this team, doing the job he needs to do, so that at the end of the year, when he gets up to that 50-point lead or gets close to it, he wants to have this championship wrapped up nice and early. And the good news is that Herrin is down on the grid with our very own Hannah Lopa. Hannah, how are you?
I'm good, Greg. It's a beautiful day for some racing out here. Now, for those of you who are just joining us, Josh Herrin suffered a crash earlier today in qualifying 2, and by looking at the bike, you would never know it. He's got a fresh helmet. He's ready to go for this race. But Josh, take us through that crash. What happened out there?
Yeah, it was weird. I was just came out of last corner, knew I was going to have to kind of run out to the curbing and continue turning to get around the guy I was about to pass, and right as I was about to cut back across, I left myself enough room, but he says he hit a false neutral, but I just saw him lift and kind of sit up, and I had nowhere to go, just ran into the back of him. So it's qualifying, we're out there pushing as hard as we can, and these things happen. Luckily, all my gear kept me safe thanks to Alpine Stars and Rye helmets. I unfortunately wrecked my lid and didn't have a backup painted one, so yesterday I happened to get this Kenny Roberts Rye helmet signed by Kenny Roberts, so hopefully it brings me some good luck today. Just shout out to everybody for watching. Thanks to Fresh and Lean and all the other sponsors for the support. Big shout out to Medallia. We had some special leathers, but wrecked them this morning, so got the chrome bike. Hopefully we get a good showing for those guys, and just hoping to get another win.
Josh Herrin hoping King Kenny will bring him some luck. Now, just ahead of him on the grid is Tyler Scott with his second pole position of the season, but I'd like to make my way back to the grid here. Kevin Olmedo, the number 16, a great starting position for you. You've had some great momentum coming off a podium at the Ridge. How do you plan to keep that confidence going moving into this race?
So after the Ridge, we felt really strong with the team. And I came back to El Salvador and keep training. I feel really good with the bike since the first practice here at Laguna. So we keep the pace. We're gonna try to do a consistency every lap. We know that we don't have the fastest lap, but I think we have a consistency and the bike is feeling really good.
Well, best of luck out there, guys. Keep your eyes on that number 16.
And that really can be the key here at WeatherTech Raceway Laguna Seca. Consistency in those lap times, especially as we get deep into this race. 2.2 miles, Jason, and this road course is world-renowned.
Absolutely. Fast turn 1 up over the top of the hill into our first row good passing zone. Turn 2 down there, Greg. 3 and 4 are only flat corners here at Laguna Seca. Then we're going to go from the run down to turn 4 to turn 5, where we start headed uphill through turn 6, up the big steep hill into 7, and then the famous corkscrew down the hill into Rainy Corner, turn 10, and then the last real passing spot. And yeah, I guess another flat corner, turn 11, before that run to the checkered flag.
You know it, you love it, the famous corkscrew, but who is going to have the pace to win this one? We're about 5 minutes away from a race start, and this young man sits on pole position. Tyler Scott, what's he going to be able to pull out of that hat? Stay with us.
As we have a look at that grid, let's talk a little bit, Roger, about Tyler Scott. I mean, what he has done since he stepped up into this category, to me, has been nothing short of remarkable.
It really has been remarkable what he's done, and, skipping the twins class, moving straight into Supersport. And personally, I love the move that he did. Coming here racing with guys like Josh Herron, I mean, that's just incredible for somebody as young as he is to get to come here and race against a Superbike champion at the age he's at now, and just learning as much as he's going to learn. It's his first year in Supersport. He's going to make some mistakes. We've seen some, the very first race at Road Atlanta, he made a mistake. He's learned from that, hasn't made that mistake again. Second race at Road America, made a mistake there, and he hasn't made that mistake over again. And, in that race that he won, he's already won a race, and he won a race by, playing his cards right, knew where his strength was, and, played it perfect. And it's really hard. I talk about it a lot. When you're a young rider like that, you just always want to lead. When you're young, you're not thinking about all that matters is the last lap. You just want to lead. Well, he let Josh do all the work, knew, that he could draft him at the line, and, just sat there and hung back. And that's really hard to do. And for a young rider, it's been awesome to see. And there's going to be some more lumps. He's young, but he just chips away at it. Like yesterday morning, the first practice, he was 5th. And then, yesterday afternoon, he's better. He's 3rd. This morning he's on pole, and just slowly getting better each weekend. He's not forcing the issue.
Yeah, he has a lot more of a mature head on his shoulders than his age would indicate, and his experience would indicate. Great racecraft, clearly about that. And when he was tracking and let Josh doing all the work there, I think he may have gone to school a little bit too. I mean, you're looking at one of the very best, obviously. You look at what Herron's done this year, and you just started referencing off him and going, oh, that's how he's floating a little bit more speed.
Yeah, and just see what Josh does, how he rides the bike. And then also a couple of the other races, he would hang with Josh and down toward till the last couple of laps, and then when the tires would go off, he kind of struggled a little bit. Mm-hmm. And he's figured that out. He's did better. And like I said, just him with the talent level that Tyler Scott has, he could have maybe went to twins and won some more races than he's winning this year. But for his future, his overall future, this was the right move.
He's delivering a message. There's no question about that. And while Herron's got out to that big lead in the points, I think what we're starting to see with Tyler Scott, Benjamin Smith, Rocco Landers, Kevin Olmedo, there is a real battle that's going to be unfolding behind Josh Herron as well. So looking forward to that one coming out. Bikes are off on the installation lap. With that, let's get back over to Greg White and Jason Pridmore.
MotoAmerica Supersport coverage is sponsored by Dunlop, the official tire of the MotoAmerica Championship Series, and by Geico, where 15 minutes could save you 15% or more on your car or motorcycle insurance.
Cannery Road, just a few miles down the road from here at WeatherTech Raceway, Laguna Seca. Starting grid for Supersport. Tyler Scott on pole with a 26.5.
Great run this morning, and then Josh Herron and Benjamin Smith with Rocco Landers, Olmedo, and Corey Ventura subbing for Sam Lockoff. So best wishes out to Sam and getting better. Luke Power, Diego Perez, and Nisani, along with Liam Grant, Soltis, and Thermiotis there, rounding out row number 4 a little further back. Got CJ LaRoche, Chad Lewin, and David Kolstad. Riverosa, Zaragoza, and Saharsvik. And then we have Harm Jansen, Tropkov, Coleman, Madar, Erstein, Joel Ullman. A couple riders we saw up at the Ridge, G-Dub, coming down here with Mallory Dobbs, Chris Sarbora, Munoz, and Michael Kim rounding out the field. 28 riders are going to take the flag today. Talking a little bit more, Sam Lockoff has chose to try to sit out these next few rounds, Greg. We've seen him injured all year, haven't we? And he just hasn't been able to perform at his best. And so, Sam, if you follow his Instagram or any of his social media, you'll see that he's going to be off that ankle for about 5 weeks, it sounds like.
All right, let's check in with Hannah.
Greg, at the start of the race, Josh Herrin mentioned, he's got a different helmet on. He did bang up his helmet in that qualifying too. I have it here with me, so you can see the rubber on the helmet where the bike tire actually came and caught him. Here you can see where it struck the ground, that scuff there, and there was actually a diffuser or a wing on the back here, and I talked to Jeff from Arai. He told me it did exactly what it was meant to do. That diffuser or that wing broke right off, and it's important to have such good safety gear because Josh is fine and he's ready to grid up for this race here now.
Yeah, it's part of what makes MotoAmerica as safe as possible, including airbags in suits. Developments that have come over from MotoGP make their way here to the U.S. And it's all about keeping these riders safe and keeping them healthy so they can continue racing on when incidents happen. 19 laps scheduled for Supersport race number 1. Upper left-hand part of your screen when those lights go out. There it goes. We're going racing. And it looks like a really good launch from Benjamin Smith, but it's Ty Scott in the 70 on that Vision Wheel M4 X-Star Suzuki GSXR 750 who leads us down into turn number 2. But there goes Herrin. He'll take over the lead.
That's experience right there. That's Josh Herrin, banking on what he knows about this place. Now, Greg, I said this morning the most important lap Herrin has done all weekend is the one that his team were able to get that bike put back together with 45 seconds left in his qualifying session this morning. He was able to at least go back out and do a lap on that motorcycle, or 2 laps, to try to make sure that things were straight and things were okay. I think it would have put a lot more pressure on them had they not been able to get him back out and see that that bike was okay. And you can see G-Dub, he's already starting to just open up that little gap as Benjamin Smith has slotted himself into second, although Ty Scott looks like he just went by him on the run up to turn 6.
And keep in mind that was Ty Scott's first time ever here at WeatherTech Raceway Laguna Seca on a race start on a Supersport machine. So he's learning as well. And Jay, you talked about the veteran move as you look at the Warhorse HSBK Racing Ducati New York V2 with that special livery. Medallia, a team partner, just up the road, their corporate headquarters, so they came out with that nice shiny chrome on the bike. And Herrin right now giving his sponsors and the rest of the fans a great show, leading the way here at a track where Josh Herrin owns 2 track records in 2 different classes since the start of MotoAmerica back in 2015.
Yeah, the guy out front right now also holds our all-time lap record in Superbike. Is that what you're talking
Certainly
about there?
Does.
So, he knows his way around here. He's comfortable here. And it makes the rest of everybody else be really uncomfortable when you see him out front. And I know he was bummed that he couldn't use his new leathers, but that bike sure does look great.
So Josh Herrin after the first lap, a 29.2 from a standing start. Pole position was a 26 flat, so under 3 seconds the difference from a standing start. A good look at Vision Wheel M4 X-Star Suzuki's Ty Scott. The young man in his first year in Supersport having a good run at it. Gets put on this GSXR 750, the next generation motorcycle that's running throttle-by-wire system and a controlled ECU by MotoAmerica. And Scott working with Robbie Peterson, his crew chief. They're having a great run at it, and they continuously learn it's really every single lap, Jay.
Every lap he does, and that looked like something was in the middle of the racetrack there. I'm not sure what that just was, but yeah, and you can see he's, going up over the hill, the first run down into turn 2 there. When you go there for the first time on a Supersport bike, you're coming in there with quite a bit more pace. And Ty Scott did the smart thing, was a little conservative maybe, but he'll learn from that going into tomorrow. But he right now is trying to just keep that gap the same. Hannah?
And Jason, talking to Tyler Scott, he said the bike is working really well this weekend. They haven't made any drastic changes from yesterday to today. However, he knew he had more in the tank today for qualifying, and obviously it paid off with his second pole position this season. He does think he can consistently replicate his fast lap throughout the race here, so we'll see if that's true as these laps wind down. And I asked him about how comfortable he is on the bike this season. He's still getting used to being on this larger displacement motorcycle. He said he felt really comfortable at Road America, obviously where he won, but even more so this weekend, knowing the pace will be even quicker.
Yeah, and keeping Josh Herrin honest, Josh just goes 27.6 for the fastest lap of the race. Tyler Scott matches it with a 127.7. Kevin Olmedo leading Benjamin Smith in 3rd place, a 127.8. So a 1/10 of a second, that last lap gained by each of the top 3.
Yeah, and you can see right now, Ty Scott actually looks pretty good in the first 2 sectors of the track. And then Josh is pretty fast from the corkscrew down, but they are definitely kind of all closing that gap in. As you can see, Olmedo got a string of Yamahas there in 3rd, 4th, 5th with Olmedo, Benjamin Smith, and Rocco Landers. Then we have the 2 GSXR 750s of Luke Power and Corey Ventura running 6th and 7th right now. So pretty tight little formation of groups here. And the guys at the front are just trying to keep Herrin as honest as they can while the tires are still really good and underneath them. So looking right now, Herrin just goes in sector 3, Greg. You can see the first 2 sectors look like Ty Scott's a little quicker. Third sector there, you can see Herrin pulls out 2/10. And we'll see what it's like in that 4th sector as they come across the line now. Herrin's going to come across with a 27.4 to a 27.3 by Ty Scott.
The fastest lap of the race to Ty Scott, Almeida, Benjamin Smith, Rocco Landers, Luke Power, Corey Ventura in the high 27s and low 28s for that group. So it looks like Ty Scott is starting to ever so slightly get that gap back as his confidence continues to increase with this Vision Wheel M4 X-Star Suzuki. 0.7 of a second by the stripe. It looks like it might be a 10th or 2 closer, where Josh Herrin might have his hands full. But we've seen this from Ty Scott before, Jason, where in these early stages of the race, when the motorcycle's feeling really good, he's able to run this pace, and then it's a question of getting that setup for the long run. It's 19 laps in this race. What's it going to be like? Is he going to be able to stay with Herrin? Because we know that the V2, that Ducati, seems to work the Dunlop tire in a different way than the inline 4-cylinder GSXR 750, and it seems to be a little bit easier on the tires in the longer distances.
Yeah, and you can see even getting into the corkscrew there, it looked a little easier for Josh getting in there than it did for Ty. Ty really has closed this gap down a lot with a fast first sector and 10th quicker again in the second sector. He's basically matched Herrin here in sector 3. So now he's on the back of him. It'll be interesting to see what Ty Scott does now that he has got there to the back of the Ducati. And, when we see a repeat of MotoAmerica where he sits there and studies and learns, this young man, Greg, has a tremendous racing IQ in the sense that he's not afraid right now to follow a guy with the experience of Josh Herrin at the front. So when you look at what Ty does, but see getting into the corners there, how it seems it's a little bit harder for Ty Scott to get the bike controlled and
it looks a little
smooth.
bit more unsettled.
It does. It looks a little bit more unsettled. And I noticed it just now in the corkscrew as well, where Herrin looks like he can just kind of get the bike in there and turn. So Herrin looks like he can get committed a little bit sooner. And we'll pay attention to those areas like the corkscrew, like turn 2, turn 11, where the downshifts are so crucial. As you can see, Ty Scott right now closes back up onto the back. Herrin will watch his board and just continue to just keep his head down and put the laps out.
What really makes the run here at WeatherTech Raceway Laguna Seca so
Herrin just has a big move. A big moment in the dip there in turn 6, Greg.
So it's really coming out of that corkscrew, Jays. You come down through Rainy, turn 10, down through Rainy 9, get into 10 and 11, setting up as now that gap, it continues to accordion.
Corkscrew, you can see that, can't you? He got up to the back of him after that mistake, but Herrin's bike just seems to go left to right a little bit better and isn't as unsettled as you said going into the corkscrew.
But where I'm looking right now is as they come into turn 11 here, take a look at how the Ducati jumps off the corner versus that GSXR 750. There goes Josh, he gets it on the meat of the tire, he gets a good drive, and it looks like he gets a bike length or 2 on Scott for the moment. Now Scott's going to town, he's going to school for sure. But it's got to be thinking about how he's going to run through turn 10 to get a run on Josh Herrin in turn 11 if he's going to make a pass to get by before start-finish line.
And I think the other thing that's important to look at here, and we've seen it a few times this year, but you can see it here, this is Herrin through the dip in turn 6. Pretty tricky turn, that one, Greg. You get in there, it gets a little bit narrow. Like to be on the gas just before you go through that dip so that the bike's not completely loaded all the way through it in the sense that it bottoms out. And Herrin was just coming out the backside of that dip in 6, and you could see the bike get a little sideways. One of the things I noticed, if you look at these two bikes and you look at the front fairings, it looks like Ty Scott still has a little bit of chatter going into some of the hard braking areas. So when they get up here in a minute to the corkscrew, we'll keep an eye on that. What it does is it prevents him. He needs to hold the lever on until he feels the bike kind of settled. And then he releases the lever to get down through the corkscrew. And that's where Herrin's bike seems like it's a little bit better up in this area, and he's able to pull a little bit more of a gap. See that gap, how it just extends from the left to the right?
It's like Ty in the mid part of heading down the hill has to pause for a moment to get the bike over back to the other side, where Herrin is like accelerating through the transition.
Yeah, and watch here into turn 11. Look at the front end of this Suzuki in second. You'll kind of start to see it. You can see it chattering just there. And that's really makes a rider uneasy because you feel like you're in your threshold braking area. You're starting to tip the bike in, trailing off in there. And when you have all that chatter, you don't feel like you can pull the lever on anymore. So you almost become static and you wait for that exit to start to appear so you can release that lever. It's even down here into turn 2. He doesn't look, to your point, like he's able to just kind of get the bike turned in. So this will be something the team will look at they're looking at the same pictures we are, and they'll try to make an improvement on this bike for him tomorrow.
Looking at the lap times, last time by the stripe, Kevin Olmedo was the fastest rider on the track as he's trying to make inroads into this battle for first. So Olmedo just gets a 1/10 of a second back on Herrin and 2/10 on Tyler Scott. So all of a sudden we're seeing the N2 bobblehead moto Yamaha R6 of Kevin Olmedo trying to close the gap and put himself in a position to battle for this win.
I mean, you've been in the series for so long, and it does such a young man's confidence when they put it on the podium like he did at the Ridge, and you're able to pick up from that momentum. And the N2 racing team has done a really nice job with Olmedo here and putting him on a bike that, if you look, Greg, as you say, he was the quickest guy on the track last time through, and his bike looks very stable, very confident as he goes through the corkscrew on this run down into Rainy Corner.
Hannah?
And Jason, talking to Kevin Olmedo, he mentioned to me that he thought he had great pace and could potentially have the fastest lap of the race. He said he's so much more comfortable here this year. This is his first season on the R6, but the bike is handling much different and much better. They made some changes, but he really liked the setup from Q1. It had great rear grip, and the gearing really lends itself to good power. He said he thinks that he can have consistent lap times and a good race pace, and he was hoping to really stick with this front group, and he sure is chipping away at them now.
Yeah, and he's healthy, Greg. I mean, that's the biggest thing that we've talked about, I think, is young man's had a lot of shoulder issues, and we know he's not afraid of training. He can hardly wait to get back home and train in the heat at home before he came back to Laguna. And he probably relived that podium in his brain forever. A little bit further back, battle for 4th and 5th here between Rocco Landers and Benjamin Smith. Rocco was able to get past Benjamin this last lap. These guys, Greg, right now are in the 28s, where our first 3 runners are in the 27s. Talking to Rocco last night, he had a lot of confidence. When I was leaving the track last night, I saw him. He had a lot of confidence. He felt like on his fast lap yesterday, which was very windy here at Laguna Seca, he felt that he had more pace. So this morning to see him 5th, I'm sure he wasn't that happy with that. Hannah?
Yeah, Jay, he said he was not happy with his qualifying time at all. His front setup is really planted. They're looking to get a little better drive out of the corners, get the bike to hook up better as he drives out of the corners. But overall, he feels really prepared to battle. He knows that it's going to be a fight to the front. He said he really needs to be there in these beginning laps as he's trying to catch up to this lead pack, because he knows he'll always be there to fight at the end.
And that's really what we've seen from Rocco, isn't it? He gets stronger as the race progresses and it gets deeper into the laps. It's almost like when the tires start to get a little life on him, Rocco really likes to be able to slide and spin and steer the motorcycle with the rear. Yeah,
there's no question. He definitely gets stronger as the race goes. And to Rocco, when you look at his qualifying this morning, we had a very strange qualifying session here for Supersport. We had 2 red flags, and it kind of threw everybody off. So when you come into a qualifying session, you have a plan with your team of how many laps you want to do, when you want to throw tires on, and that sequence, when it gets a little bit disrupted, it can make a difference in whether or not you could be on your fast lap and a red flag could come out. So we don't know exactly what was going on with him this morning, but something like that could have happened. These guys, Greg, 27.5, 27.7, 27.7 again for Olmedo, and there you go, 27.8 for Rocco Landers. So you can see there's Rocco coming into your screen. Ty Scott does a good job of closing that gap in these first 2 sectors. From the corkscrew down, he loses it. Rocco Landers on the run right now, sees Olmedo up ahead. What did he have that last time, G-Dub? 1.5 seconds behind Olmedo. See if he closes that down more.
So 27.5, half a lap ago for Josh Herrin, 2/10 quicker than Ty Scott. Ty Scott looks like he's just going to school on Herrin. This could be a repeat of Road America, although we don't have that big straightaway. So for Tyler Scott, he's got to be planning, where can I possibly pass Josh Herrin? But what we do know about Josh is smart enough, Jason. He's been in this game long enough where he's not giving him everything. He's not giving away all his secrets just yet. So if Ty Scott tries to make a pass on Josh Herrin too early and play his cards too early, that could fall right into the hands of Josh Herrin. Down into turn 2 they go. Couple of different lines. Jason, a very interesting corner. You go down a big hill, then it flattens out, and it's a double apex corner.
Ty Scott looked like he tried something a little bit different to me there. It looked like he was taking it a little bit further down the track, more on the center part of the tire rather than tipping in. So I'm going to keep an eye on that the next time he goes through there, because he's obviously maybe doing something a little bit different. 27.4 for that guy in second place right now, and that is almost matching the lap that he ran early of that 27.3. So when you look at him start tipping into corners, especially turn 2, he definitely has stayed a lot closer to him in these first 2 sectors. Let's see how he gets out of turn 6 and up the hill towards the corkscrew.
Not too bad. Very interesting corner, very technical corner. This whole track is rather technical. Up into the corkscrew they go. This is where Herron's been super strong, and it's from this point where he flicks it back down
really
the hill, the big drop downhill. Quite a sensation. But watch how Ty Scott's able to close up through Rainey into turn number 10 on the brakes. And this is the danger part. If Josh Herron's rhythm is interrupted, this is where Ty Scott could take advantage of it.
To be fair, Ty's bike looks really good in the fast and flowing type of corners. So the bike's not getting as far probably in the stroke as he would be when he's holding onto the lever in some of the shorter corners. When he comes up over the hill here, turn 1 into turn 2, we're going to get a look and see if he's taking it down the track a little further. It looks like we have somebody, it looks like turn 6, Greg, somebody off the track sitting up on the bike. Don't know who that was, but we didn't get to see these guys down into turn 2 that lap, so we'll have a look at it next time. This turn here, I think Herron still has the measure, but when they get to turn 4, I think Ty Scott's bike looks really solid through this turn and coming down from the corkscrew into Rainey in turn 10. And Herron has a look, and Ty Scott gives him a wave.
Oh, boy. Ty Scott playing head games with Josh Herron. He was waiting for Herron to turn around and gave him the hello. Yeah, hi, guy. I'm right here. That's something special.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see how Herron plays that out. I don't think Josh is going to want to relinquish the lead or let Ty Scott win, but he's going to have another look back over his shoulder again, and he's going to let Ty Scott go ahead and go on through here as you see them going up to the corkscrew. So now Herron's going to follow this GSX-R 750 around for a lap, and again, this is what happens when you get a veteran. He's going to go right, try to go back after him as they come down Rainey, but like you said, G-Dub, he doesn't want to show him everything. These guys are going to be racing all day today. They're going to be racing against each other tomorrow. And Herron's going to see where he has the measure on Ty Scott now. So what do we have? 9 laps to go. This looks like the bike that was off into the dirt earlier, and he's going to be a good guy and get out of the way there.
Josh Herron, Ty Scott, the drag race to start-finish line. And with the way Ty Scott managed turn 11, it would have been Josh Herron who won the race had that been the checkered flag.
Yeah, and it could have been Ty Scott. But see that right there? That's the difference. Josh Herron's able to get into those corners and release the lever and let the bike roll. It looks to me that Ty Scott's bike is chattering to the point where he has to wait for the motorcycle to get stabilized up underneath him, especially in the tighter corners and the tighter places where you're holding onto the lever. You can see Herron looks over, lets Ty Scott go through, looks over again in the bottom right hand of our screen as they came out of turn 4, sees that he has a little gap. So these guys are playing a couple games right now. They have 2.8 seconds over Almeida that time through.
And the lap times, they've been running 27 lows, 27 mids. They go 28 mid last time by. This lap time isn't going to set the world on fire either for these two as they're mucking about. Into the corkscrew goes Josh Herron. You're new to Supersport racing here in MotoAmerica. These are street-based motorcycles, production-based motorcycles that we're racing. And some slight differences from your street bike is no rearview mirror. So Josh Herron's got to look over his shoulder to see what's going on.
See how good Ty Scott's bike is in turn 10? But see the gap he loses from the corkscrew down to Rainey. That's a big gap. And if you can see that chatter really, really good there. And I know it's something that they've been finding because I've seen it in other videos this year where we've seen that bike have a lot of chatter at the front, it looks like. And I think that if they can try to get some of that out of there for Ty Scott, and I'm sure the team are trying to do that for him. But it's this point right here. Herron can just get the bike turned in and tipped in, and there's that little 1 or 2 bike links that he's able to pull away.
For Kevin Almeida, who's sitting back there in 3rd place, he's just going, wow, look at them. They're right there. They're so close. They're 2.5 seconds up the road. I can see him battling, but Kevin's able to just match the time of the leaders at the moment. So here you have Josh Herron, Warhorse HSBK Racing, Ducati, New York on the Panigale V2. That special chrome livery leading the way from Ty Scott, the 16-year-old on the Vision Wheel M4 X-Star Suzuki GSX-R 750, both next generation motorcycles. Ty Scott, the rookie in the class, Josh Herron, the veteran. Started racing in Supersport way back in the day when Herron arrived on the scene at 16 years old and has been in and out of this class over the years. But Herron, with unfinished business in Supersport, has never taken the title. Herron, of course, with a stock 1000 title to his credit and the coveted Medallia Superbike title back in 2013, looking to win his first Supersport championship. And the upstart, Ty Scott, out of Pennsylvania, trying to do everything he can to learn from Herron and put him behind him. All Scott wants right now on his Vision Wheel M4 X-Star Suzuki is to stand on top of the podium. He wants race wins. When we come by the stripe, Jay, it's got to be 6 laps to go Take us inside the helmet of each of these riders. What are they thinking?
Well, I can tell you one thing they're going to be thinking. They're going to start to see some back markers coming up in front of them. And I think that, being able to catch those guys first is going to be a key thing. We had almost 30 riders on the grid today. And there's a few, when you start looking at 3, 4, 5 seconds a lap slower, I think probably within the next 2 laps, we're going to start to see some of those. And I think Laguna, there's 2 things about Laguna. When you try harder here, you usually go slower. It's very much a flowing type of racetrack. And when you try to make up time on the brakes all the time, it could be fairly exhausting. And it can also take you out of that flow. And looking up the road, there you go. There's really our first back marker, or tail ender that we've seen. And right now, Herron's probably thinking to himself, I just want to get there first. Because look at how much Ty Scott has closed up in that second sector. But man, from the top here down to Rainey, he literally pulls out enough of a gap where Ty Scott wouldn't be close enough to even try to think about doing anything with him in turn 11. And the nimbleness of the Ducati down there looked good. Josh didn't quite go through that right-hander probably the way he would have liked to have. It was a little bit late. So Ty Scott kept him a little bit more honest there. Lap times, though, Greg, still 27.4. I mean, Herron more or less did the same lap time that has been his best lap time of the race, which is a 27.4 also.
For sure, when Ty Scott got out front for the few corners they slowed down a little bit. And I don't know if that was Ty just pacing himself or if it was just the idea like, okay, now what do I do when I'm out front? Down into turn number 2.
Yeah, that guy does a great job at just kind of staying out of the way. Really nice, but that actually helped Herron a little bit more than Ty Scott as well. So 27.7s that time for the leaders on the way through, 28 flat for Kevin Almeida. And it looked like Rocco in the background there has just started to close that gap to under a second now to Almeida. So you might still see a battle back there for third as well.
And that was Diego Perez, Jason, who we saw, the
really interesting, isn't
35, who qualified 8th.
Yeah.
So Perez obviously with some issues, but now here we go. We have lap traffic up ahead of us. There'll be blue flags that wave, indicating to lap traffic that the leaders are coming through. But when you're racing someone else, it's a matter of trust. Do you pull over to the side and just trust that the person behind you is not going to pass you? Here goes Herron into the chicane. Nice move. Puts a little bit of daylight between himself. Yep.
That's what he needed to do, and now he's going to see, now Herron has the ability to go past this person going into turn 10. He's going to dive down the inside, I'm sure, of Jorge Erstein there. You can see it's tight, Greg, that one. But he's able to do it, but it actually probably cost him some time there. See, Ty Scott is going to get a little bit bulked up also. So for Herron, that actually is going to work out okay for him. And he's got more guys in front that he can try to put between him and Ty Scott. You can see Ty Scott doing his best to get by Erstein down that front straightaway. So now we're pretty deep into these guys. There's another 3 or 4. See that bike, Greg? It just doesn't look like I think he wants it to look. And Robbie Peterson's going to be keeping a keen eye on that to see if there's something that he can do. And this is where the experience starts to play through and track knowledge for Josh Herron as he's continuing to carve his way through some guys. He'll get by both Joel Ullman and Chris Sabaro here on the run down to turn 5. And looks like Ty Scott's going to try to do the same thing. Let's see if he can get by all these guys. If he can clear them, that'll be good for him, but I don't think he's going to be able to clear all those guys. Now Herron's got a little bit of free track up in front of him, and Ty Scott's a bit stuck.
Yeah, turn 6 is not the place where you want to be stuffing lap traffic. It's kind of a single file line through there, but Scott gets a good drive up the hill. It doesn't look like too much damage was done initially, but we're going to see what kind of speed Scott's able to carry as he comes down out of the corkscrew. It's right about here where Scott really starts to accelerate through these corners, have great corner speed. We'll see how much time he's able to make up on Josh Herron. Jason, we've talked about it. I mean, the majority of the time, I would say 9 times out of 10, you want to be that lead bike through traffic. Yeah. So you can pick and choose your moments. But in some instances, it's just luck. It's just where you hit them.
It is, absolutely. It's where you come across these guys and where you put that pass on them. And you could see there that Josh actually had a little bit of trouble getting by one of the guys into turn 10. And I think if he gets through him cleanly, he probably would have opened up another half second. The thing I'm looking at now, Rocco Landers has jumped up to third. Just while this battle's been going on up here at the front, we're going to get a look. There's Rocco Landers and Kevin Almeida coming through that same pack of riders. Yeah, Laguna Seca, Greg, and this is a place where there's a lot of people that want to come to Laguna and ride Laguna, so they come here for their first time, and it's a difficult track to learn. So some of these riders that you see might be here for their first time or not that much experience here. As you can see here, It's Rocco going up underneath Almeida. So Rocco took advantage of some of the traffic that these guys came up on. And, you know, the thing is when the two leaders go through, then the traffic become very aware that there might be other battles going on around them, and there's a looking around. They get the blue flags. Almeida right now in the 16 is doing his best to keep tabs on Rocco Landers as they head up here into the Corkscrew. He doesn't want to give up that podium fight without a good fight here with Rocco. I expect this one to go to the end. The other thing I'm thinking is if the two guys out front get some clear track, it'll be interesting to see if Ty Scott can maybe even better the lap time we saw earlier. We'll get an idea how good his tires are. Almost 1.1 seconds. It's down to 0.9 through just our sector timing that we can see here. Herron's going to have 2 laps to go this time by. Let's see what he was able to run to get himself back into the 7s. He does. A 7.6 to a 7.7. 1 second gap right now for Herron over Scott. Rocco Landers and Almeida are in the 28.1, so they're at the low 28s.
Yeah, so they're doing identical lap times, and it's really about what Kevin Almeida was talking about at the beginning of the broadcast, about that consistency. So just over 2 laps to go for Josh Herron in this Supersport class. A 68-point lead for Herron, already 5 wins this season, looking for his 6th. Ty Scott trying to put a stop to it. The story of this one for Scott could be lap traffic and the time that he lost in that lap traffic. But for these two, same story. Rocco Landers able to take advantage, but Kevin Almeida is not done with him, Jay.
No, he's going to stick right there with him, and you saw Rocco have a look over his shoulder, and as quick as he looked, he got his head back down to where he wanted to go, coming out of turn 3, headed towards turn 4 there. It's going to be really a matter of where Almeida is going to feel his most confident to do this, and you have a lot of different options when you start headed down this hill out of the Corkscrew. For those that haven't been here before, this incredibly steep drop-off. But now as you go down into Rainy, you have some options here. If you can get a good drive out of 9, you can position yourself out of this corner up the inside of guys going down into 10. Rocco looks pretty solid down there, Greg, and he's got a relatively narrow line into 10. This guy's going to see the white flag lap when he comes down to this last corner. He's looking at his board. He's going to look and see what that number is, and right now it's going to be a second at least, maybe 1.2, I would say, over Ty Scott. Then you got this battle for 3rd. So really, I think Herron's got things under control at the front, and 27.8 again, Greg. So he's basically lived in the 27s. It's the first time we've seen Ty Scott drop into the 28s at a 28 flat without traffic.
So Warhorse HSBK Racing Ducati New York on the Panigale V2s. Josh Herron having a great run at it today. Lost the lead for a couple of corners. Played a little cat and mouse, has another look over his shoulder, as does Ty Scott. And then you have Vision Wheel M4 X-Star Suzuki's Ty Scott. And in this battle, Landers Racing, Rocco Landers on that Yamaha R6 against N2 Racing, Bobblehead Motos, Kevin Almeida. This is for the final spot on the podium here at WeatherTech Raceway, Laguna Seca. And you just have a feeling that Kevin Almeida's got to try it somewhere on this final lap. Is it going to be up to the Corkscrew? He gets a decent run at it, Jay. Is he going to do it there, or is he going to wait until turn 11?
I think Rocco just got through turn 6 too well there. He looked like really good. And if we know one thing about Rocco, he can carry some corner speed. Small mistake there, but you know, Almeida's just trying to get creative with things that he can try to do here. But he did make a tiny bit of a mistake coming down, and Rocco is going to block this line into 10. And he's probably going to go pretty tight into 11 as Almeida is continuing to close that gap, though, wasn't he?
Here comes Josh Herron onto the front straightaway. Full gas for the Ducati rider. He takes a look over his shoulder, and the checkered flag waves, and another win. And that battle for 3rd, it's going to go to Rocco Landers, who was able to get himself out of turn 11.
Well, you were calling that race to the line there for Herron. I looked out my window. Almeida had made the pass, but ran wide in 11, and that was it.
Oh, boy. And so the mind games are full tilt right now as Josh Herron waves at Ty Scott in response to that wave from Scott earlier. But coming across the line, Luke Power, Jared Nassani, and Corey Ventura. So Jared Nassani in 7th, Corey Ventura filling in for Sam Lockoff on that Vision Wheel M4 X-Star Suzuki. After a pair of podium finishes last season, 8th place. This is the original wave, Jay.
Yep, just letting him know he was there. And, you know, Herron put his head down, was able to continually stay in those 7s.
And that's Josh Herron right there.
Pretty much, yep, that's Josh.
Nice victory for Herron. His 6th of the season and 3rd in a row. And so far, it was race number 3 of the season, which was race number 1 at VIR, where Herrin was off the podium. But here's the race pace, Jay.
Well, you can see there, Greg, that consistency. That's a killer for most guys, because when you can just sit there and run in the 7s the whole race, the only lap he didn't was the last, and the one lap there on lap 11 where they got into some traffic, ran 28.6. The rest of it, though, were all 27s. And I think in qualifying, what it was at 6.5 or 6.5 was pole, so a little bit slower than pole position times. And normally we see these guys get pretty close to at least getting down into the 26s again. There'll be some changes made on that number 70 bike overnight. I can assure you that. They're going to look at that and see if they can do some things to help this young man with a couple of the places that I felt like his bike wasn't working as well.
High IQ for Ty Scott, too, so that start, his first in Supersport here at WeatherTech Raceway Laguna Seca. That'll go into the banks. He'll talk it over with his crew, and we'll see if he can get that good launch and then hold on. That was his first run down into turn 2 from a dead stop, so definitely learned quite a bit there.
Yeah, absolutely, and he won't let that mistake happen again tomorrow, and he'll just try to continue to and improve. That's all Ty can do, and he's got a great group of guys around him that will help him work through any other things that are going on. You see Robbie Peterson come over to him there and congratulate him, but I can tell you right now, Robbie's wheels are already turning in his head to try to make things better.
When we come back, we're going to talk to Josh Herrin and find out how that race went as we wave goodbye.
Well, what a fascinating race. And Tyler Scott, Roger, really putting up a fabulous fight. Got a little bit lost in traffic there, lost a little bit of ground, less than he certainly could have, and it did everything he could to close it up on the end. But I think at that point he may have just used up those Dunlops a little bit.
Yeah, and he was right there. I mean, had the same pace. I just don't think he had the pace to close that gap. I think if he, if they didn't get that second gap, he would have been close enough toward the end to make a move. And Tyler Scott needs to hold his head high. He rode a heck of a race. He's going to learn so much from that race, and what he did is really impressive with the Kenny Roberts signature helmet there, which is might have brought him a little bit of luck.
There you go.
Tyler Scott, like I said, just rode such a good race. There's parts of the track that he can improve. Looks like he's got some front chatter and some corners that he can't really carry the corner speed that he would like, but there's other parts of the track he was really quick, and if it could have been a different story if they didn't run into those lappers, but Josh used his experience through the lappers, and that was the difference.
Well, you had mentioned when we were off mic that Josh is really aggressive, and that first move he used when they caught that big group, that just sort of gave him that little bit of clearance, didn't it?
Yeah,
and
it did.
it opened it up for him.
And he is aggressive, and even with his passes and stuff, he's not afraid to stick it in there. And when he came up on those lappers, he didn't follow. As soon as he came up on one, he was making moves.
Yep, and Tyler, he looked really good. Once he got into Rainey, and especially down through 10. But as the other guys were talking about too, it just didn't look like he could fold it down into turn 2, to get that bike turned in to be able to get on the throttle coming out quite as well as Josh.
And then also headed into turn 2 also could be something else too. Getting the bike to stop in turn 2 can be difficult too, because you're coming over turn 1 so quick and it's downhill into 2. So sometimes you come here and you have trouble getting it stopped because it's downhill, the engine braking. So it could be a couple different things, or the front end as well.
And that battle for the last step on the box there between Landers and Olmedo after that bobble by Olmedo up in the corkscrew, we would have thought, okay, that's going to be it. But he carried still a huge amount of speed through the corkscrew, was able to gain it right back again, and actually made the move underneath on Landers down into 11. But Landers just got the better drive out and was able to take it back. One thing you can certainly say, this was an entertaining race in this Sport class, and just an absolute treat. And a lot of fun to watch. And Josh Herrin earning yet another win, but Tyler Scott going to school. Ducati, Suzuki, Yamaha on the podium. Some good parity there as we head back to the other guys.
Back here in Monterey, California, and it is California, right on the coast. A lot of people stay downtown near the wharf, have a great view of the California coast. Always nice and chilly, maybe mild. I don't know. It depends on where you're from. I know back where I am, it's a good 30 degrees cooler here in Monterey. Here are the race results. Not the tail of the race for sure, but 1.6 seconds the margin of victory. Rocco Landers, another podium, half a second behind. Kevin Olmedo, Benjamin Smith, Luke Power, Desani Ventura. Good run for him. Let's get right down to Hannah, who's in victory lane with our race winner, Josh Herron.
And Greg, it seems that Kenny Roberts' signature did bring Josh Herron some good luck after all. A victory today. Josh, Tyler was keeping you honest throughout the entirety of that race. Did you have to adjust your riding at all in order to keep him at bay?
Yeah, I did. You know, I saw a little gap at the beginning, and I kind of settled in a little bit, and then he started crawling back, and I was getting a little worried. I looked back a couple times, and at one point he's waving at me, you know, having a little bit of fun. So I wanted to let him go by, see what he could do, and made a little mistake, so I was forced to go back by him. And at that point, I just put my head down and just charged, try to get the win. So just got to thank the entire Warhorse HSBK Racing, Ducati New York team. Thank you to Ducati for all their support. This V2 is an amazing bike. I'm happy to be on it. Got to thank everybody from Medallia for coming out and title sponsoring us this round. I had a pretty bad accident this morning and wrecked my leathers that I had, wrecked my helmet. That's why I'm wearing the Kenny Roberts helmet, which might have brought me a little bit of luck, so maybe I have to wear it again tomorrow. And yeah, just happy to be here. Happy that I got a lot of friends and family here, and hoping to do it again tomorrow. So congratulations to Rocco and Tyler, and yeah, let's get it tomorrow.
Looks like we need to get Baby Griffin his own microphone for the next interview. Josh, one more question for you. You looked over your shoulder at one point during the race, and Tyler gave you a little wave. You gave him a wave right back at the end there. Is there a rivalry brewing as we move into tomorrow's race?
No, just having fun. You know, it reminds me of the days when I was racing Eslick. You know, it's crazy. That kid's 16 years younger than me. He's really bright. Got a super crazy future ahead of him. His dad just told me, you know, it's crazy. My son's the same age difference between him and Tyler that me and Tyler have. So he said maybe one day Griffin will be racing Tyler. But you know, it's a lot of fun racing him. He's fast enough that he's able to play those games on the track, and it's fun. I like that kind of stuff. So we're just concentrating on trying to get wins and having fun.
Thanks, Josh. Guys.
Why not have a little fun when you're out there? Winning is fun, but your competition makes it that much better.
Yeah, well, that's where the fun is, up in the front, they say. And, you know, these two guys will go back at it again tomorrow. And let's get back down to Hannah.
Second place today for Tyler Scott. Tyler, at one point you were able to overtake Josh, but couldn't quite make it stick. What more were you looking for out there?
Yeah, the Vision Wheel M4XR Suzuki team put an amazing bike under me for this race, but I was just trying to keep a fast pace and make sure he was staying on pace, and I knew it was going to be a hard race, and when he kept looking back, I just gave him a little wave to know, to give him to know it wasn't going to be an easy race, and I was ready to fight. But at the end of the day, we just had some problems the late race, but amazing race, and good job to Josh.
Now, we saw you fighting some chatter out there during the second half of the race. What were you able to learn from today that will hopefully help you improve upon this result tomorrow?
I think we're only going to make some small changes. The chattering was just me over pushing at some points, and I made a mistake towards the end of the race, and I just couldn't catch back up.
Thanks, Tyler. Second place today. Guys?
Well, I mean, that's, you know, he's keeping it close, and I understand
absolutely.
that.
Yeah,
but they are already talking about what changes they want to make.
Yeah, and the team right now, while he's doing that interview, they're talking about things that they just saw and what they might be able to do to just try to make him more comfortable. They want him to be able to break as deep as he can and make it as good as it can for him. Hannah?
Third place today goes to Rocco Landers. Rocco, we talked earlier today about how you were feeling not as strong at the start of the race, but you're always there in the end. What was it that really came through for you to help you catch up to Kevin Olmedo and overtake him for this podium?
Yeah, it's been a struggle this year trying to get this beast of a Yamaha R6 to let tires last, so I always have to go with like a harder compound, but couldn't get the thing to hook up, so I was just riding the front and basically just doing a stoppie the entire race. Just trying to have a good time, and yeah, once we went, we were going through a bit of a zoo there, and I had to get by Kevin, so that kind of gave me a little bit of help there, but he ran an awesome race, and flung it up underneath me there in the last turn. I was able to turn it back up underneath, but I mean, top 600 again, top Yamaha. Try to win tomorrow, but I can't give it up to my team enough. They helped me out so much. My dad, my mechanic Boyd, Mark DeGrasse are coming out here, and Brendan, Dean, thank you guys. My mom, Tom Halverson with Yamaha, a friend of ours, Luz, helped us out so much, and that's pretty much it.
Now, what is it that you need to focus on specifically in order to improve on the first half of the race so that you can hopefully better this position tomorrow?
We're going to make some changes to make the thing hook up a bit more, maybe, and that'll help me with running this tire. So, yeah, that should help. Josh has been helping me out so much. He's helped me with my sprinting in the beginning, and it's getting slightly better. But, I mean, we're going to try to get a little bit further up tomorrow.
Rocco Landers with a plan, guys.
And that's exactly what you need. It's a great two-race format here in MotoAmerica that riders can get after it again tomorrow. Josh Herrin with that Kenny Roberts signature celebrating. We'll have more coverage from WeatherTech Raceway Laguna Seca after this.
All right, celebrations for Josh Herrin as the gets another one here. Boy, he is stringing together his season, but this one didn't come without some activity that could have been a lot worse than it was. Take a look at this. Coming out of the final turn during this morning's session. Watch in the background there, Patrick, the number 60.
The throttle there was no response.
Yeah, it was Patrick Coleman, and there was just, nothing home, and Josh had already launched it. And look at that multiple barrel roll that Josh took. And he was able to hop up relatively quickly. Took a little longer for Coleman to get upright. They all eventually were able to walk away. There was Coleman. It took him a little bit of time to catch. I think he was catching his breath, and he came back over saying, "Yeah, I can ride if we can make it happen." But for Herrin, I mean, it dinged up the helmet, dinged up the bike. They had a lot of work to do.
Yeah, they had a lot of work to do. You know, luckily for him, he got out with 45 seconds left, so he got to go out and check the bike over. And then he's got a really experienced crew. I think that has, that helps a lot when you get some good guys in a situation like that. And also as a rider, though, it's a little nerve-wracking when your crew's putting in such a, working so fast. You're just hoping they don't make a mistake. And, Josh rode a great race. His experience paid off. And, Tyler Scott's got some, couple things that he can work on and just go to school and see if he can't find a couple tenths tomorrow in a couple places, and he'll be there. And even when Josh got that gap, Tyler fought back a little bit. So, I mean, he's definitely got the pace. There's just a couple places where he's got to be better, and he's going to know that. He's sat there for almost the whole race, so he's going to know where he needs to improve.
And I got to ask you, from a rider's perspective, when you have a little bit of a bobble, that's a whole different ball game, isn't it?
MotoAmerica Supersport coverage is sponsored by Dunlop, the official tire of the MotoAmerica Championship Series.
Back here at WeatherTech Raceway Laguna Seca as Josh Herrin climbs to the top step of the podium again this season. Beautiful shots here from Monterey, California. Take a look at the race one highlights because it was an entertaining Supersport race.
Well, this is just experience here. You can see Ty Scott gets a great start after Benjamin Smith, but Herrin goes by Benjamin Smith. Then he slides it up underneath Ty Scott, as well as you can see Almeida and Smith.
He'll take over.
Looking to try to get by Ty Scott as well. Herrin just kind of set the pace at the front, was better in a few spots than Ty Scott. Ty Scott had to measure Josh Herrin in a few spots as well, especially some of the faster corners and things. So you see here, Kevin Almeida at one point had a nice little gap for third. Herrin and Ty Scott started playing a couple little games. Herrin wanted to go to school a little bit on Ty Scott. Ty Scott made a mistake coming out of turn 11 when there was a back marker that I believe got the blue flag here. Kind of threw Ty Scott off a little. Herrin was able to go back past. So he didn't have to spend too much time behind him. He was only maybe behind him for half lap. Traffic played a little bit of a role in this battle for third. Almeida was able to be caught and passed by Rocco Landers. As you can see, Almeida cut through the corkscrew a little bit there. But it was this guy again, GW, increases his championship points lead again with that Kenny Roberts replica helmet. He's going to move on tonight and see if they can't make that thing a little bit better as well.
The chrome shining the California sun. And a big one. Let's take a look at those standings. So now Josh Herrin has extended his points lead over Ty Scott, 76 points. Rocco's there at 77. Kevin Almeida in fourth place. So it's 25 points for a win. At this point, Josh could take a weekend off and still have a 26-point lead when he decides to come back. This is unbelievable turn of events here in Supersport for 2022.
Yeah, it really is. And when you really think about it, at our next round at Brainerd, I don't believe, I can't believe if Herron actually went there last year, because I believe JD Beach took his spot. So it's a spot that Herron hasn't actually raced at before. So maybe that'll help some, maybe it won't, but he's going to be able to go there with such a big points lead, Greg, that it's not going to matter. And when you give a guy like this big of a points lead, he's not even thinking about the points anymore. You've given him such a big gap over the rest of everybody else. He's just going to go out there and continue to rack up those wins and get those bonuses.
We know that Josh Herron did test last year at Brainerd, so at least he knows which way the racetrack goes. But it's a matter of, well, this V2, it's new. So every time they go to the racetrack, they're going, what are we going to do with gearing? What are we going to do with suspension? So it'll be interesting. But we still have a day of racing tomorrow, Jason. So what we've seen today with what changes the Vision Wheel M4 XR Suzuki team will make, what are you thinking about tomorrow?
Well, you know, when I see what they said as you look here at our schedule, I think that what you heard Ty Scott say is there are a few things that's minor changes that they want to make. I'd be surprised if the team doesn't make a few more. They want him to be able to threshold brake as much as he can and be more competitive, I think, on the brakes with Herron before he releases that lever.
So race 2 is coming up next from WeatherTech Raceway, Laguna Seca, and you can see we still have some great racing the remainder of the season. We certainly hope you enjoyed Supersport, race number 1 from WeatherTech Raceway, Laguna Seca. For Hannah and Jason, I'm Greg. Thanks so much for joining us. Can't wait for the motorcycles to line up again for race 2.